Well, remember all the excitement from Ke'Bryan Hayes' major league debut, all the excitement from last night? Well, and it's gone. Maybe not so much, but it certainly did turn around into a thud for the Pirates as they lose tonight's ball game 8-2 to the Chicago Cubs. They actually lost Ke'Bryan Hayes' major league debut, but I don't think anyone cared about that loss because of how well he did. Not the same here this evening. It's just a shellacking all the way through. The Cubs getting a victory, yet another win over the Pirates. Pittsburgh now 10-24 on the year, while the Cubs are 22-14. They've got a lot of games in. They're one of the better teams in baseball, certainly in the division, and the Pirates, well, the worst in all of baseball as that continues. This is a Pirates edition of Pittsburgh Postgame on Pittsburgh Sports Live. I'm your host, as always, Mike Asti, and I'm going to be joined by Alan Saunders as we kind of continue on from where we were a couple nights ago prior to Ke'Bryan Hayes' major league debut. It was a great debut, it was. We're going to kind of touch on that debut, maybe a little bit in this game and what we saw from it, and then what to make the rest of the way as the Pirates kind of putter through the rest of this season. So, Alan, there was a little excitement for sure. It was the first time this year, really, there has been excitement around the Pittsburgh Pirates. We're not yet into the NFL season. We're not yet into college football season. The Penguins are long gone, and they've made their offseason moves, but not on that night. So that one night, Tuesday night here on September 1st that we kicked off this month, it was a Pirates night in Pittsburgh. It was a night that even the ratings dictated it. More people were watching than have been this season because of Ke'Bryan Hayes' major league debut, and it was a great debut that I don't think anyone could have expected. It's certainly above expectations for a major leaguer to start things. Not the case here this evening, but just speaking on these two games and him in general, I know you were a little bit down on even bringing him up at the time because you're losing a little bit of eligibility, but do you see any positive now, any change of mind based on the excitement of that one game? Anything you see from him individually that gives you more confidence with how well that debut was and then not so much here tonight?
Well, I think it gives people something to root for, right? Like, because,
Right.
I mean, we've established that they shouldn't really be rooting for the team to win.
Sure.
But they could root for Ke'Bryan Hayes to look like a potential future superstar, even if the team loses. And that's what happened on Tuesday night. And I think that's why it was so exciting. I mean, yes, the game was in the extra innings and the Pirates ended up losing. But if Hayes is going to look like that, I don't think people care if they lose. I think that would give people a reason to tune in the rest of the season just to watch a young potential future star, cut his teeth. But the problem with cutting your teeth is you have nights like tonight where he was rotten, 0 for 3 or 0 for 4, 3 strikeouts. That's not getting anyone excited. And I also think that's an unfair amount of pressure on a young man. This is not exactly a sure thing with the bat. Like, I think we're pretty sure that he's going to be an above average defender at third base in the major leagues. What kind of hitter he's going to be, I think, is still very much up in the air. I mean, he was just an average AAA hitter last year, actually just a slightly below average AAA hitter last year.
Yeah.
There's not proven power there, which you generally think you need from a corner infield spot. There's some question marks with the bat. And so, yeah, I don't know. There may be some more exciting nights as he continues to show some of the promise that made him one of the top prospects in the system. But there's also going to be some nights where he goes over 4 and strikes out 3 times. I think there's going to be more of those nights than the other kind, which is sort of why I was questioning the process in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely fair. You're not going to reasonably want to put any pressure on this kid. And we did talk about on the last one of these that regardless how he performs this year, whether it was a major league debut like it was, or whether it's more games like this with a golden sombrero and going 0 for 4, that you're still going to give him a chance next year. You're still going to give him a chance beyond that. You're still going to figure he's a part of your future. And if he is not somehow, then you're really in trouble. So this year is not going to change much in how the management structure is going to perceive him, or at least you wouldn't assume so unless he really hits the cover off the baseball. But that's probably not likely. The major league debut that it was and how exciting as it was was well above any reasonable expectations for anybody. But this is not Mike Smith, certainly, as a hitting third baseman. Any, though, change in mind just for the fact that it is providing a reason for fans to discuss the Pirates, a reason for fans to talk about the Pirates, to engage with the Pirates, and to watch the Pirates the rest of the way. So it is possible that if those numbers are a little bit higher than you would think for a team without a young rookie who is just horrendous and has been most of the year with their stars struggling, that maybe that would at least make it well worth it for the Pirates to have him there. Because of the Major League debut, at least buys you a few more games of people wanting to see what he can do because of that great debut.
I guess, but then you end up with Derek Holland pitching 4 innings.
Yeah, that's true.
A guy who's not even sure why he's still on the team. I mean, a nice guy and certainly a major league pitcher, but he's not going to be here next year. So, like, what's the point? I don't know. There's not a whole lot of a point to what the Pirates are doing right now. It's a wash of a season. It's a wasted season.
It is.
And, I mean, I think that's the thing that maybe more so than the results has been the most frustrating part. And, they get Joe Musgrove back. I think that is another thing. If you're talking about things to watch for, I think getting some of these guys that have had some injuries back on the mound, back in the field before the end of this season, I think you feel a little bit better about them moving forward if they perform. We saw last night Cal Crick comes back. He's still throwing 91, gives up the game-winning run eventually in, what was it, the 11th inning?
11th inning, yeah.
And so if Joe Musgrove, I mean, just kind of so-so 3-inning outing, nothing really that shows you like, yeah, Joe's back, he's going to be fine. So I don't know that gives you any confidence moving forward either, right? I mean, but I do think it is important for players to have what the Pirates like to call a healthy offseason, where you get to the end of the season and you get past the injury issue. And then you just have like it's not like you have an off-season issue where you're rehabbing when you're normally resting. And then that kind of throws off the routine at the beginning of the year. If guys can just get right and then get done and then show up in February in Bradenton like they normally do, I think that's an advantage. So getting guys like Joe Musgrove, Kyle Crick, maybe even Keone Kela, although who knows if he's going to be around as a Pirate next year, but good for him anyway to get back on the mound and get back into things before the end of the season. But really, I mean, that's a thin list of things that could go well to watch for at this point.
Yeah, and Joe Musgrove is another one that I was certainly going to bring up because it was a miserable performance for him in this game and his comeback only going 3 innings, which is where a lot of these starters are going to be judged by. We've talked about that a lot on these post-game shows. This team was not going to win this year. You understood that. The starting staff was very depleted and had all those injuries. So if you can see Musgrove and Trevor Williams and company go at least 4 or 5 innings, that's a plus for you moving forward with them. They're not doing it anymore. Some of those guys were doing it in the beginning of the season, and Musgrove in particular, who started opening day, did have a few in a row where he was going deep into starts. He wasn't winning those games, but now he's only going 3 in after being out for a month, so that's a little disappointing. And again, it's question marks on who's going to actually be a part of this team moving forward. But guys like Musgrove, like Trevor Williams, you would figure are. So you do want to not only see them healthy at the end of the year, but also individually playing well. And this team has another one with the Cubs, obviously, still again, the class of the division. So it's going to be rough as they continue to move on with this schedule. The Reds, the White Sox, Kansas City, and then Cincinnati again. Maybe some of those Reds games or opportunities for victories. We will see, though. The Pirates losing this one here tonight, 8-2 to Chicago. That's back-to-back losses to the Cubs after an 8-7 loss victory for the Cubs in extra innings last night, and that was the Major League debut of Hayes, who had that great debut all over the news circuit, and then today, not so much. And the rest of the stars who had struggled in that game, do pick it up. Any thoughts on Hayes being there, even if he's going to have this roller coaster ride? Because we saw Polanco hugging him and a lot of excitement in that clubhouse, Tucker the same. These are guys that are struggling, that don't have their heads held high. any thought of Hayes being there could maybe help rejuvenate some of those veterans. And we did see Polanco hit tonight. We did see Bell finally get a hit. They actually performed in this game despite barely any runs on the board in terms of at least getting on base. Maybe Hayes could somehow rejuvenate others, even if not himself, to try to draw something out of something.
Well, he's not going to rejuvenate anyone if he strikes out 3 times and goes over 4, right? I mean, I think it all comes back to hitting, right? I mean, I think it's just as likely that he's a drain on this team than he is some sort of large addition. And so, no, I think one thing it can do, and maybe I don't think it's that important, but it is of some value, is that it makes him part of the team, going into 2021,
True.
right? He's not the new guy. He's not a rookie anymore. He'll just be part of the team. And that is a thing for guys that they feel more comfortable once they kind of know what their role is going to be and the guys around them and that kind of thing. But also, like, we've already established that 2021 is a whole building year anyway. So there's plenty of time for that. Like, it's not like that needed to be like that process did not need to be rushed along. Just like none of the other the Pirates are in no hurry to go anywhere because they've got nowhere to go for multiple years.
No, and that's very, very realistic, but that is a fair point, though, and that's kind of what you saw a little bit last night with the fanfare around Hayes and the kind of high five fest, as close as they could get here during COVID, that it did seem like he's a little bit part of the team now. But in all reality, what team is he a part of? What does it matter to be a part of this team? And certainly that could have been done early next season if they would have a regular year or anything close to it, and certainly more of a season than this year, you would assume. Alan Saunders, I'm Mike Asti. This is the Pirates edition of Pittsburgh Postgame on Pittsburgh Sports Live. I want to remind you, if you're watching now or watching later, to click on the subscribe bell, bottom of the video. It helps us get content to you as you also browse around throughout the Now family of network sites. Now, we could kind of do this for back-to-back games as we round things out here because we were with you a couple nights ago, and then we had the Hayes debut. They lose in extras, and then here this game, 8-2 loss to Chicago. So, Alan, 3 up, 3 down. We've been doing it every show. We're win, lose, or draw, so we're going to get through it here on this one as well. In terms of 1 up, and we've touched on this a little bit, I do think an up, it's fair to say the excitement level has at least increased a little bit because Hayes is on this team, and that includes the Golden Sombrero and the 3Ks in this game. But the excitement level being somewhere that it hadn't been all season long is an up if you're going to have an up. So that's 1 up for me at least. But what do you have? Holland clearly a down.
Yeah. I'll go down. Like, why is Holland even still on the team? That's my down. Like, what? I understand they probably tried to trade him at the trade deadline. They probably couldn't get anything for him. I understand that there are not.
He has World Series experience, though. You would think some team would maybe want him to.
Well, fine. If nobody wants him, that's fine. Let him put him at least put him through waivers. Let's see if somebody else wants him for free. Right? Give him the opportunity to play for a team that is not actively trying to lose, and give another younger player an opportunity to pitch. They don't have a ton of pitching prospects that are down there in Altoona that really need or could use the time, but I just don't see the value in rolling Derek Holland out there anymore, unless maybe he's a guy they think they might want to re-sign. I don't know. I can't see it. I'd put him through waivers and see what happens.
Why would he even want to resign unless he has no other options?
Right. Well, I mean, you heard Jared Dyson before the season, not that much out there. You got to take what's there. But yeah, I would at least put him through waivers and see if somebody else wants him. What's the worst thing? Let him go, right? I mean, let him go pitch for another team that's looking for some depth that might be able to use him.
It's not like you care if feelings are hurt. This isn't a contender.
No. And like, cynically, save yourself a couple $100,000. Right. Why not? I'd put him through waivers and see anyway. And then if he clears and nobody wants him even for free, then okay, maybe keep pitching him if it's convenient. But I would not have him as part of the regular plan, at least for the time being.
I think one of my downs, and many others would make this an up, because he did have one of his better games of the season, despite it being a loss in which the team was outscored 8-2. And we saw a couple weeks ago some fanfare after he hit a game-winning home run. But Gregor Polanco gets a couple hits tonight, but for me, that's a down because this man had sucked right up until the trade deadline. And yes, he didn't do anything last night, but for him to pick it up now, this is almost a cynical perspective and almost an annoying perspective. And this is where the pessimist in me is certainly going to come out. These stars that you expected to contribute coming into the season, even if you knew you weren't going to be a winner, veteran players, Bell, Polanco, certainly Brian Reynolds, who is still struggling, you thought you were going to get a little bit from. And if you were even going to be near 20, 25 wins to be respectable, you had to get something from these guys, even if not to the level they had in the past. But Polanco had been the worst among all of them, hitting below 100 going into some games and below 200 almost the entire season to this point. Now, I believe hitting a little over 130. I think it's where 134. I think it's where he finished. But regardless, for him to hit now would almost be annoying. There's no point of it. He's not a part of the future of this team. We've already seen the best of Gregor Polanco in the past. The fans have their opinions on him. He is somewhat of a popular player with fans and media, but he's not going to get anything else for you. The value is what it is. He's not going to be any better in the future. So what's the point of this production from Polanco? To see any production from Polanco now and games are getting blown out and he's now hitting a few games in a row is just annoying more than it actually being a positive. So that's a down for me.
I actually might disagree with that in that he's got an $11.6 million salary next season. And so if he shows something the rest of this season, they can trade him in the off season. Right? If he hits 350 the rest of the way, then they can trade him in the off season. If he hits the way he hit the first half of the season, they're stuck with him still.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
So I do think they can get something out of him in the off season if he continues to hit. And I think that's the best case scenario for him. And I think that's why there's some guys in this team that are struggling. You got to keep rolling them out there every day. You can't just give up on them. If they have an injury, fine. But you're not going to get anything out of Gregory Polanco. Who's a negative asset with that contract right now. So, yeah, you got to keep playing him until he hits his way out of it. So, I don't know. I don't think that's a total negative. I'll give you a positive. How about Josh Bell laying one down the third baseline? Yeah. That's a guy just, God, he's been struggling. I like it.
He's putting an effort in. He wants it.
I like to see it. And of course, I am team #never bunt. But if you're gonna try to get a hit out of it, and they're gonna shift you like that, and you're pissed off, and you're already having a terrible year, and you just want to get to first base every once in a while, listen. Go ahead and put it down the third baseline, big man. I like the idea of just every once in a while, especially if he's not feeling it, if he's struggling. I know he's a home run hitter, but I don't have a problem with him just check swinging a single down there, putting a bunt down, whatever it's got to be.
Yeah.
Make them play him honestly. I think that would actually go a long way towards helping what he's done this year. Maybe Polanco too, honestly. It's
Nobody should have their ego be too high to be above anything.
If you look at their exit velocities are fine. So they're hitting the ball. They're just being well defended. And I think maybe if they're hitting
the ball now. The beginning of the season,
outside. I mean, Polanco's exit velocity has been off the charts all year. If they got outside of their their little niche, and expanded their game a little bit, made them a little bit more difficult to defend.
Sure.
I think that actually might help. And so I like to see that. And I think that's the kind of thing that can get a guy going, I think, is you start to get one over on the other team, right? Oh, they're going to shift me. I'm going to put it down third baseline. I'm going to get a free single out of it. And then you start feeling good about yourself. And look, baseball is a 90% of the game's half mental. Maybe more.
Yeah.
And so I do think a little bit of good feelings can go a long way, especially when you're just in a awful season like Bell is. I think that could really be beneficial for him. So I thought it was fun to see.
Yeah, it definitely was fun to see. And I also think not only for fans, but also for players and really everybody around this team, media as well, to do something somewhat surprising and have some fun in a season that's going nowhere, that you've been struggling. who's going to hate that? It does show that you have some life in there, and it could maybe jumpstart something. I'd like to see some of that from Brian Reynolds as well, who doesn't have nearly the power, has been struggling more so than some of these other guys, and hadn't been making contact at the beginning of the year. Granted, maybe nobody's struggling as much as Bell's been for what his pressure was and what they maybe wanted him to be producing. One up, though, and we've already had three, but I'm going to give one more up, even though I think we have another down to give as well. One up, and we got to mention this on this show, Anthony Alford. 2 hits, a run scored, a run driven in, an RBI in this game. Somewhat surprise again, former Blue Jay, able to provide something in terms of some life, injecting life into this Pirates team. You see Hayes do it last night with his great Major League debut. We've seen Eric Gonzalez do it earlier in the season. We've seen Evans do it prior to his injury. Maybe now, along with Hayes' debut, we see Anthony Alford provide that life, that injection of I'm caring and I'm trying to be something and I'm trying to showcase myself and somehow help this team, even though, again, we've already touched on it, they shouldn't be trying to win. But these players are going to care, and that's nice to see, some life from him. So who knows if it's going to be consistent, but he had a solid day for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's, between him and Hayes, there are some young guys to kind of hope on a little bit. You got to have that, I guess. But he's an interesting prospect. He hit fine in the minors, and he came up, and he just didn't hit at all in 2 years with Toronto,
right?
Part of last year and part of this year. I mean, that's a short time period to give up on a prospect. I know, Toronto's trying to compete in their division, but I think that was a bit hasty. And so I think he's an intriguing guy, and can play a little center, which makes him nice defensively.
He's an athletic player with a glove, which is nice, and he's a player that has not even had 75 career at bats. So he certainly is a very, very small sample size in terms of what you're looking at. So to see that from him, it's definitely a positive. We'll see what happens in the future. Alan Saunders, Mike Asti here, Pirates edition of Pittsburgh Postgame on PSL. Again, reminding you to click on the subscribe bell down there, making it easier for us to get our content to you. And you don't even have to follow us on Twitter. You can just subscribe and get the notifications right here on Pittsburgh Sports Live. One more down. I think we have one or two more. I think we have one more down. I know Holland was a down, obviously. Team and the season. Anything else you want to give here in general as a down?
Yeah, I mean, there's
Musgrove could have been a down. We already touched on it.
There's not a shortage of downs specifically.
Are you upset at Cole Tucker?
No,
he was good a while ago.
I'm down on the team's attention to detail on defense. They lead the major leagues in errors.
That's
big. Drops a pop up. Kevin Newman's kicking a ground ball. I understand. Mentally, I'm sure a lot of these guys are checked out, but it's not a good look for a first-year manager to have a team that just looks disinterested playing defense right now. Yeah. And I think that's pretty telling. I mean, you look at that inning. I can't remember the inning, but when Holland really went off the rails, and it's Alfred throws into the wrong base, so they lose a double play ball, and then Moran drops a pop-up, and this team isn't good enough to give away any runs. And yeah, I get it. They're not really trying to win, but I think you'd feel a lot better about the team going forward if they at least made a fair acquitting of themselves while they're at it. Kicking the ball around is kind of the worst way to go about that, right?
Yeah.
But if you just go up against somebody's best pitcher and you swing and miss a lot, well, okay, you're just not as good. But when you drop a pop-up that, that 99 out of 100 times gets caught in the majors, you kick a ground ball that maybe 999 times out of 1,000 gets fielded in the majors, it starts to look bad. And it was pretty rough defensively. And throwing the wrong base, that should never be excusable for a major league player. So, yeah, I'm pretty strongly down on their defense right now.
Yeah, and I think that rounds things out, but I think that's really, really fair. And honestly, as much as we've had ammunition to provide downs on all these post-game shows, and you and I have done most of them, we haven't touched on too much on the defense being so poor, but they've had at least an error in most of these games. Very rarely had they gone back-to-back without an error. and you see 3 in this game, which is one of their season high. They have the most errors in Major League Baseball. This is a team and a pitching staff that was going to need to rely on defense, thinking it'd be a positive coming into the season, regardless how the season would go. And not only are the stars not hitting, not only are they dealing with injuries, not only are the starters not going deep in games, but the defense is not helping the cause. And I think the defense does point more towards the manager, who I have got some flack where I've tried to defend a little bit, saying he's a rookie manager, you can't expect much, but he's getting outmanaged in some of these games, certainly strategy-wise. And then you're seeing a team not even provide you the fundamentals. And you're talking about major league players would normally make that catch or throw to the right base. I would think Little League and we go play in the Sandlot out back, we're going to at least throw to the right base, even if it's far off the base. Just to be targeting the wrong base is what I like to say asinine, but that's definitely a down for the Pirates. Again, Alan Saunders, Mike Asti here on the Pirates edition of Pittsburgh Postgame on Pittsburgh Sports Live. The Pirates lose back-to-back to the Cubs here as we're kind of doing a recap of this one and Tuesday night's loss in extra innings to Chicago. That was an 8-7 loss in 11 on Hayes' debut, as great as that was. That was a game with some excitement. This game, not so much, as he struck out 3 times. The Pirates lose 8-2. The Cubs, 8 runs, 10 hits, no errors. Pittsburgh, 2 runs, 8 hits, and 3 errors, of course. The Pirates now 10-24 in the year. The Cubs now 22-14. Alan, as we close up shop here, you have another against the Cubs. You have that back-to-back, the doubleheader against the Reds, and I will be joined by Kyle Dawson, who is a play-by-play man locally here in the Pittsburgh region, a former colleague of mine with the Trib, still does some high school play-by-play there with the Trib Live Sports High School Sports Network, as well as some minor league baseball, then the White Sox, KC, and then the Reds again. Any thoughts about the rest of the season, I guess? Because we're obviously not going to think this team's going to be really trying to be winning games, or they certainly shouldn't be, at least managerial-wise, but these are the games left, I guess is what I'll say. Right now in front of me.
Here's what's left. I mean, I think JT Brubaker is another one of those young guys. He's going to go tomorrow afternoon against the Cubs, and Matt Geica and I will be live for post game right after that one afternoon. First pitch 1:35 at PNC Park. Alec Mills on the hill for the Cubbies. And Brubaker's another guy where I'm not quite sure where he fits next year. Is he a starter? Is he a reliever? Is he a really good pitcher? Is he an okay pitcher? He's got a 4.50 ERA. He has not gone deep into games, but he has, I thought his last time out, he was strong deeper into his outing. Looked like maybe he had a little more in the tank. And I think they're expecting to get 6 innings out of him if everything goes well. And so I think that's at least something to watch, right? Somebody to tune in for. And of course, we talked about Alfred, talked about Hayes, but I think of the pitchers, with all the injuries right now, Brubaker is one of the more interesting guys they have from a starting perspective. I'll be interested to see how he holds up down the stretch of his first really major league experience. It's kind of all I got, man. I mean, we got the Hounds coming back in here later this week.
It's a winning team, right?
They are truly playing inspired soccer. So they're back here on Sunday after Pirates Reds early Sunday afternoon. It's a 5 p.m. kickoff, and then it's a game week for our football teams, and I'm looking forward to that a lot more than I am Pirates White Sox. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's absolutely fair to say. I'm right there with you. And as we talked about on the last post gamer, that football season is on the horizon. And even though Pitt is the 4th team in the region for sure, certainly in the city of Pittsburgh by the fans this year, that's going to leave the Pirates go a lot earlier than normal. And then you have the Steelers season where even though you have a young stud playing well or having a solid debut, at least even if he is playing well with Hayes, nobody's going to care because it's going to be Steelers season. It's going to be Steeler football season. A lot of people were thinking we weren't going to have an NFL season. We are. They're going full head steam at that. Alan and I are going to be leading that coverage. So that's where the excitement should be throughout the Now Network. Pittsburgh Sports Now for the Pitt coverage, as well as high school. Steelers Now for the Steeler coverage. Even WV Sports Now for the Mountaineers coverage as they're getting towards a season. Big 12 is going to have a season as well. And even WV prep football down there. We got some high school football coverage as well down there in West Virginia. So a lot of football, a lot of gridiron action here as we get towards some more COVID sports. And that's going to look as normal as you could, even though fans won't be there in the stands. So that's where the conversation should be. That's where our focus is going to be. And that's where it fairly will be right now. But the Pirates, nonetheless, another with the Cubs. They have the Reds coming up here. As Alan said, him and Matt will have you tomorrow afternoon, evening-ish, probably right before dinner with the way the Pirates work, with the post-game show for that one. I will be with Kyle Dawson, a play-by-play man in the region, including minor league baseball work, Friday night after the Reds doubleheader. And then we have the Riverhounds, who are a winning team, so that's a positive. And then we get towards the gridiron. We're going to have some post-game shows. Certainly I'll be with you, probably with Matt a lot of the time after Steeler games for our NFL post-game show here on the Pittsburgh Postgame edition here on PSL. That's going to be a big one, and we definitely hope you guys join us for that. So for Alan Saunders, for the rest of us throughout the Now Network and Pittsburgh Sports Live, I'm Mike Asti, and, well, there's excitement. There's a little bit of excitement, but once again, as Alan put it in the last show, can see off on the horizon, and once again, there's football season, and it is coming up. So get excited, football fans, as I close this baseball edition, this Pirates edition of Pittsburgh Postgame here on Pittsburgh Sports Live.